how's it going everyone? I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I'm Ames, and today we are going to be discussing potentially the most degenerate manga in all of Shonen Jump Plus, the slave of the magic capital's elite troops, or chain soldier for short. Now what separates this from your typical ecchi harem series is that despite it having a wide variety of fine women who are all in a contest to see how quickly they can take their clothes off in front of the main character, it also has sustenance behind that. In a typical ecchi harem series, you'll have some type of generic plotline that's just there to add some story to the series while the women are busy getting naked and having wonderful bouncy bobas. Like your typical ecchi harem series might have a plotline where it's like a dude moves into a room that's haunted by a ghost of a shut-in otaku who just treat the place like it's her own and just ignore the guy and act like he's not even there because she believes the room is hers, so she'll just casually get naked, take a shower with the door unlocked so the guy walks in on her, and then suddenly some other women show up like a ghost hunter or an exorcist to get rid of the girl, and then suddenly they all become friends and they all get into a contest to see who can win the protagonist's heart. Like, I just made up this series on the spot, but I'm pretty sure there is a story out there with that plot line. That's just how generic a lot of these ecchi harem series are. But Chain Soldier has something beyond that. I mean, yes, there are a lot of good-looking women, they all spend a lot of time with their clothes off, and the protagonist gets into some very sexual situations. But outside of that, there is a deeper story to it. Now, the story of Chain Soldier goes that in Japan, there is suddenly a rift in reality, and gates open up to this world called Mato. And within Mato, there are these evil, horrible monstrosities called Shuuki who can enter the real world and then wreak havoc on the population. But along with these Shuukis came this mystical fruit called a peach. And this fruit has the capability of bestowing mystical powers onto women whenever they eat it. According to the narrator, if a man eats it, nothing happens. But when a woman eats it, she gains powers beyond belief. Only reason I'm emphasizing that's what the narrator says is because we haven't seen it ourselves. There is more to the peach than meets the eye. So it could simply be that there are certain circumstances that a man could gain powers from the peach, or it could be that eating the peach could cause the man to get sick or die. We don't know for sure if nothing happens if they eat it because we've yet to see it. Now there is a reason I am emphasizing this. The peaches have unidentified mysterious mystical capabilities that cause some discourse throughout the series. I'm not going to spoil what that discourse is for you, but just understand, there is a lot of lore and world building around the Matos, the Shuukis, and the peaches, which you don't typically see in this type of series. Anyways, the women who eat these peaches and gain these supernatural abilities join the Anti-Demon Defense Corps, which is its own military faction within Japan that goes around defeating the Shuukis that appear from these gates. And our protagonist, Yuuki Wakura, ended up accidentally wandering in through a gate and ended up in Mato, where he ended up running across a herd of Shuuki. And as he was fleeing for his life, a member of the Anti-Demon Defense Corps shows up and saved his life. This woman was the chief of the 7th Squad, Kyouka Uzen, and her ability is Eternal Chain Slave, which allowed her to subjugate anyone whom she puts a chain on. She was originally subjugating the Shuuki and have them fight for her, but then she and Yuuki got surrounded, so she decided to offer him a chance to save himself by becoming her slave. He didn't really have a choice, so he accepted and turned into this magnificent beast upon becoming her slave, and with it gained extraordinary power that allowed him to fight back the Shuuki. And then once it was over, as his master, she had to provide him with a reward adequate of his services, and since he just helped her save her life, his reward was something magnificent. She ended up stripping down and fulfilling one of his deepest desires that he himself was not even conscious of. And her ability makes her do this against her will. She has no choice in the matter. Her body acts out on its own. And that's where the Degenerate plotline comes in. Anytime she uses this ability, when it's over, she has to give him a reward that he desires. And they all tend to be very sexual in nature. Now you might be thinking, oh, it's just one of those kink fulfillment mangas, right? No, that's the crazy thing. It does seem like that, especially with some of the rewards being a little too far out there, but the story that comes before and after those parts is absolutely amazing. Now that could be because this series was written by Takahiro, who also wrote Akame ga Kill. Now these series were illustrated by two different people, so they may not resemble each other, but the main thing I want to focus on are the stories. Now they both have pretty dark storylines. Although Chain Soldier is a little more laid back because the main focus is the ecchi fan service, but that doesn't take away from the overall series. Yes, the fan service is a huge selling point to this series, but that doesn't diminish the story. The story is still relevant, and it has a huge influence on the reader's entertainment. It's not just fat material, it's good quality reading, because it doesn't focus on something simple like they fight some Shiki, the dude gets his reward, the girls get naked. That's not the only thing. There's a whole ideological warfare that goes on throughout this series, especially especially with Kyouka, who is the chief of the 7th Squad. Her goal is to become the commander of the Anti-Demon Corps because she believes the current commander's ideology on just focusing on defense, wait for the gates to open, then go there and prevent the Shuukis from entering our world is too lax of a mentality. It works at preventing disasters, but it doesn't solve the issue of the Shuuki and the Mato and the gates appearing. She believes they need to go on the offensive. They need to locate the Shuuki nest, destroy them, wipe out all Shuuki there is, so that way if a gate does open, there aren't that many Shuukis to enter their world. This is just one of the many ideological warfares that occur throughout this series. It begins to make you think and question what is going on with this world. Are they doing the right thing? Who is the good guys? Is there a way to change the system for the better? Or is the system good as it is right now? There are more plot threads that are added later on throughout the series, but I don't want to get into those just yet because I feel like it would be a massive spoiler, especially because of how much the story improves throughout the series. There are so many things you begin to question about the infrastructure of this world. It's not simply that they focus solely on the Anti-Demon Corps and the Shuuki. There is so much more that gets built up upon, especially with the introduction of the main antagonists. With their introduction, the world building grows so much more. And this is something I would like to discuss more, but it involves major spoilers. Only thing I could do right now is be as vague as possible and just tell you that the world building is spectacular. You feel like it's a real life world. It doesn't isolate itself to just the 7th Squad. It elaborates more on the Anti-Demon Corps, all 10 squads, their responsibilities, the regions they control, their level of influence throughout the Corps, how they relate to the politicians, how do the politicians deal with outside forces, how do these other nations react to the Mato, to the Shuuki, to the Peaches, and how does it all work and blend together? It's not a simple isolated incident. Despite the gates and the Mato being located in Japan, their significance affect the entire world. There is a whole political infrastructure surrounding them, and the Anti-Demon Corps is the center of it all. And once again, that is because of the Peaches. They are only located within the Mato, and they provide extraordinary abilities to women. So of course, other nations are going to want these abilities as well. Now, the abilities themselves vary from person to person. They're not all powerful as you would think. There are a lot of them that have major drawbacks. Like, for example, Kyouka's Eternal Chain ability has the drawback of needing to give your slave a reward. And once the ability ends, the reward instantly begins. Kyouka, or whoever she lent this ability to because she can lend the chain to other people which changes Yuki's form, whoever was currently holding the chain and using him as their slave would have to give him a reward as soon as the ability ends, thus debilitating them for that period of time. And we've seen the reward go from a simple 5-second head pat to spending the whole night cuddling each other in their underwear. So if this were to happen in a prolonged battle where multiple waves of enemies were approaching, they would have been in serious trouble if she was in the middle of giving him his reward when they were attacked. That has yet to happen in the series, but that is a possibility. That's one of the drawbacks of her ability. Then there's another character whose ability is clairvoyance, making her nearly all-seeing. Like, she can't see someone through a concealment spell, she can't look underground, or a place that has magic preventing people from observing them from the outside. There are some other drawbacks to her ability, like her ability is a non-combative ability. She cannot fight in any circumstance. So despite them having these mystical abilities, they're not all equal. There is a distinct hierarchy amongst the Demon Corps. Even other nations have their own soldiers whom have the abilities. Now, these abilities depend upon the person's desire when they eat the fruit. Depending on what they want to achieve at the moment of eating the fruit influences the ability they get. Like, there's this character, Neo Kawamura, who has the clairvoyance ability. Her ability was born out of her desire to search for someone who went missing. So depending on what the person wants to achieve at the time of eating the fruit, their abilities can vary greatly. There is also more to it, but then again, that is spoilers territory, which I don't want to spoil for you. I want you guys to read this series and judge it for yourself. Yes, it is extremely sexual, so don't read it in public. There are censored versions of it online, especially on Jump Plus, but the situations the characters get into, especially during the reward scenes, are pretty far out there. They are definitely some kink fulfillment scenes, so yeah, it's not worth taking the risk to read it in public. In private, by far, read it, you will enjoy it. I guarantee you, the world building, the character development, the story, the fan service, it's all top tier. You have a dark storyline, you have characters with their own goals and desires, and you watch them as they grow and develop in order to achieve these desires to become better soldiers, in order order to save more people. And the fight scenes are absolutely extraordinary. It's not a simple thing where it's like, oh, whoever has the stronger ability automatically wins. No, no, no. Due to the ability's nature, they have conditions, requirements, and a lot of them take a huge toll on the person using them. So instead of it being something like Dragon Ball Z where it's whoever has the bigger blast ends up winning in the end, it's something more equivalent to Hunter x Hunter or JoJo. It's how the person uses their abilities to its fullest potential that ends up winning the fight in the end. Even against Shuuki, who are just massive mindless monsters, there are certain semblances of use your ability to a certain extent to win. Well, that excludes the massive horde of Shuukis who are just mindless monsters. In that situation, yes, it's whoever has the biggest blast ends up winning. But there are some special classes of Shuuki who are extremely powerful, to the point where it's not just you could just blast your way through them. The characters suddenly need to strategize and work together in order to defeat them. As such, the people whose abilities are compatible with each other start teaming up and using their abilities to cover their shortcomings. If one person's ability is all about pure power and destruction, a person whose ability is all about speed and precision might cover their blind side. Anyways, the final thing I wanted to say is this story is not two-dimensional. It's not just one straight storyline where it's just about the boobas, the women, the stripping, the kink fulfillments. That's not this story's entire selling point. We have a lot of character growth and development, especially with the protagonist. He wanted to be a hero, especially because his sister was one of the people who went missing during a Mato disaster, which by the way is just the title of someone disappearing in the Mato gates. And since she trained him to be very good at housework, Kyouka was able to use that as an excuse to recruit him into her squad. She simply designated him as the errand boy so that way he could be within her squad barracks and she can use her ability whenever a mass horde of Shuuki appeared. And because now he has the capability of fighting, he's doing whatever he can to save others. He's trying to fulfill his dream of being a hero whatever way he can, even if that means he has to be a slave. And of course, I don't think he had any issue with that. He's getting a lot of benefits with that title. Now, the only thing that I view as being a downside of this series, it's the fact that it's also a harem series. As we know, harem series tend to not have really good relationship between the characters. A lot of it is sort of like forced into the series just because they want the protagonist to be around multiple women, and that's unfortunately a fault of this series as well. The romantic scenes, romantic being in air quotes, is incredibly forced. It's just the women saw him fight and then suddenly they have a crush on him. Or they used the lend ability and had to suddenly give him a reward at the end of them fighting with him. And now suddenly, just because he saw them strip naked, they made out with him, they were on top of him, suddenly they're in love with him for no reason. A lot of them state that it was because they haven't been around guys at all, so that he was their first experience with one. But still, that's incredibly weird for them to suddenly fall in love with him right away. Even a few of them have stated they've been around guys before, but none of them compare to him. Still incredibly weird and forced. But besides that, I can't find many faults with this series. If you could look past that flaw and the vast amount of ecchi scenes that comes with the series, you're gonna enjoy it. That is a promise. The story is really well structured. No one's gonna consider the story to be bad. It may not be new or unique in any way, shape, or form, but it's still incredibly entertaining. I'd put this series next to High School DxD and To Love Ru as my top harem ecchi series. And just to clarify, I'm talking about the original material. Like for High School DxD, the light novel, and for To Love Ru, I'm talking about the manga. Not their anime adaptations, because the anime adaptations had a very bad habit of cutting out key plot points in favor for ecchi scenes, which took away from the quality of the work, but the original material had very good plot points and really good development for the plot and characters. So High School DxD, Chain Soldier, and To Love Ru, not To Love Ru Darkness, because I felt that series cut back on the plot development in favor of more fan service. These three are hands down some of the best harem ecchi series that you could read. And with that, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and remember to keep having fun. See ya!